Day 6, and I'm still not buying a selfie stick. I would rather keep this phone at arm's length until my hand goes numb, but I will not buy that thing because it's barbaric. I'll not be a bourgeoisie twat. Um, yeah, man. Like this last video really got to me. The one that I uploaded earlier with the university that's now going to punish students for not speaking out against implicit bias. Like it actually got me to go out of the house in order to talk a little bit more about it. I spoke like 20 minutes, and now I still don't have enough. It's so authoritarian, isn't it? Like, instead of students worrying about getting good grades for exams, instead of them like trying to study hard for whatever thing is coming up, they have to keep their eyes open and see any suspicious activity of any racial bias in order to report it. Because if they don't report it, then they get punished. Like, can you imagine a student in a dorm getting a glass and putting it next to the wall to see what the students next door are talking about? Because what if they're talking about some racial bias over there, and you can get in trouble? Like, why didn't you hear it? You are in the next room. I can imagine these students like listening to Ben Shapiro on a small iPhone with a lot of blankets over their head in order so that other people don't hear what's being said. I'm not even joking. Like, this is how people listened in my country to Radio Free Europe. They would take a lot of blankets, cover the radio, and then like put their head underneath the blanket so they could hear it. This was to make sure that the neighbors aren't snooping around. My God, man. Universities, they scare me. They really do, because and I did two of them, but I didn't do any indoctrination nonsense. I finished law school, I finished med school. There was like no, not even the idea that there is something that you can't say or you can't think, even if it was false. Like, you could go to a professor and tell that 2 plus 2 equals 5, and the professor would be like, okay, prove it. Like, show it to me. How did you reach that conclusion? And if you were to actually show the conclusion that your theory was correct, then they would congratulate you. Thinking outside the box was encouraged. It wasn't something forbidden. But right now, from what I see, it's just one way of thinking, the correct way of thinking. And if you don't think correctly, they will punish you. There's bugs on me. There's this website, Campus Reform, and I suggest people should check it out. I remember reading it in 2014, and my God, like, the stories you would read there, they would seem outlandish. They were just too ridiculous to believe. And now when you look at the real world, especially what's going on in the United States, they weren't outlandish stories. They were a prediction of the future. And what's worrying me is that if you read Campus Reform today, the stories you get there are now seeming outlandish and ridiculous. You see the trend? Yeah, Yale University got in trouble. The Department of Justice is going to try and sue them because they're discriminating against white and Asian people. You know who I bet they're not discriminating against? The children of white Democrats. Like, I am willing to bet, the senators that are Democrats and they send their kids to that university, I have a feeling there's no discrimination done towards them. Because if they were, immediately they will start complaining. Yeah, there's another article where a professor is encouraging other professors to just give better grades to minorities, like, regardless of how much they study, just give them better grades. And like, at that point, it's like, what is the purpose of a university, you have to ask? I mean, imagine if a university that teaches people to be pilots is just going to artificially inflate the grades of some people that might end up flying a plane. Would you want to go on a plane with such a person? I'm curious. It's and some might say, well, they don't need that. They don't need that because they will learn it as they go. Well, if they will learn it as they go, what's the purpose of a university to begin with? If you look at America, there was a scandal that got overlooked. It was just a blip in the radar. But there was this security company called Equifax, and Equifax got hacked, and a lot of Americans, I think like almost 100 or 150 million Americans, had their social security number and private information leaked throughout that hack. I Google it. It's a thing. You probably didn't hear about it because it wasn't in the news, right? But it's a massive thing. And if you Google it and you search even further, you will find that the person that was in charge of security was a diversity hire. It was a woman who finished art school, and she was placed in a position where she had to do cybersecurity. Like, what does art school has to do with nothing, right? But I bet like it wasn't just a diversity hire. I think it was nepotism as well. And the person that hired her said, well, it doesn't matter if you don't know anything. You're going to figure it out as you go. Yeah, and this is like the situation. This is where it's going to be heading. Like if you're going to encourage a lack of meritocracy, you're going to get a lack of meritocracy. If you're going to encourage genitals and skin color, well, you're going to get genitals and skin color. You're not going to get people that are actually competing for the job, and they're the best of the best. But yeah, it's really weird, and this whole thing of policing other people. I mean, that's what they do in China, right? Like, if you have a small social credit score, the people that have you on social media, they get lower social credit score as well, so that they can police your behavior. And it's also about encouraging people to get offended, even if they're not. Like, again, take this example. Let's say you're on a campus, and if anyone does anything remotely racist and you don't speak out, then you get punished. Let's say your colleague at the dorm watches South Park. Now, what do? Do you react or not? Because here's the thing: if you don't react, you risk getting in trouble as well. But if you do react, then other people are going to say that you're crazy and insane. It's like, dude, it's just South Park. Like, what's the problem? And this is just an example, but you can apply this to every single joke. You can apply this to anything the person is saying, and you're going to get a communist nightmare rather than an American dream. That's why I close my Discord server. Like, I don't want to police my own community. I don't want to decide whether or not South Park is offensive. I don't like. I mean, hell, there's now a campaign on Twitter to cancel. What is it called? The 301 movie, the one with the Spartans with Leonidas, because it's with toxic masculinity. I mean, we live in a world where Gone with the Wind is now racist. They have expanded this definition to be all encompassing, and it's on purpose. I think it's on purpose because political correctness is very effective. People are complying with it. There's no pushback against it. So they're like, okay, you shouldn't use the N-word. People stop using the N-word, even though like 10 years ago in the 90s, you would have heard it on television and Hollywood movies nonstop. There was no problem with it. But okay, people don't use it. Then it was, okay, don't use the word that Carlos Maza gets upset. It's like, okay, people don't use it. Don't misgender trans people. People don't misgender them. Like everything they do, it works. To the point where there's like very little to get offended. So they there is an entire industry of getting people offended. There is an entire business. Multi-million dollars are being poured into getting people offended. So they have to constantly come up with new things and new things and new things. I mean, it got to the point where Pepsi, yes, the company Pepsi, actually made a tweet saying that Tucker Carlson is racist because he mispronounced Kamala Harris's name. Like that is the level where we're at. That is what's racist nowadays. Like back in the day, you had to burn a cross in front of someone's property. But now I guess, just mispronouncing someone's name is enough. I mean, it's literally on that same level, right? It's literally on that level. You know what I think? This is how I think all of this shit will stop. Because a lot of people ask me, like, when do you think all of this will stop, all of this wokeness? I don't know if I'm right or not, but like I can compare it a little bit with the Masons. The Masons were at one point very overly represented in a lot of positions of power. and they were, pushing each other's interests, like having secret meetings and whatnot. People didn't like it, but like no one did anything about it. And the problem was that they would promote each other. Like when you had a Mason in a company, and he would get in a position of power, he would only promote other Masons, and this was at the detriment of non-Masons, right? Very similar to what woke people are doing today. Once they get in a company, they promote other woke people at the detriment of anyone that's not woke. And if you're going against the woke, then they are going to fire you or make your life so miserable that you're going to quit. So I think like there's a comparison there. So how did the Masons lose power? Well, from my understanding, and again, like correct me if I'm wrong, there was a person that said he will expose the Masons, a journalist, and he got shot. He got killed because he said that. And after that, like a lot of people were so fed up that they started discriminating towards the Masons, and they used the same tactics. They would not hire Masons. They would make sure that Masons get fired or quit. There were a lot of institutions that banded together in order to purge anyone that was affiliated with this movement. And I think this is what's going to happen with the woke. Might take a generation, might take less, but like eventually people are just going to get fed up. People are going to be fed up with told how to think, what to say. They're going to be fed up with the double standards, with the hypocrisy, with all the political nonsense and all the bullshit, and with the fact that they're also making businesses not profitable. I mean, there are businesses wasting hundreds of thousands of dollars on people that are supposed to raise the diversity, and they only come to work for like 2 or 3 hours, writing some emails and then, having a glass of wine with the marketing department. Those people will have to go. And the moment like something will happen that will be very difficult to cover up and is going to piss off a lot of people, and especially people with money, I think that's when people are going to treat the woke like we treat fascists now. Just get them fired, not promote them. And there's already initiatives, by the way. Like there's already a website that encourages businesses to not hire woke people. I'll probably make a video about it as well. Personally, it's not something that I would like to see, but like there is so much public goodwill that you can lose until it will eventually happen. Like there is just so much you can piss off random people until, I guess they will agree with the woke, and freedom of speech wouldn't mean freedom of consequence. And then you'll see them crying. You'll see them crying and going, "Oh, V, why don't you defend our free speech?" and blah blah blah. It's like, the arsonist asking to be the first person rescued from the burning building. It's like, yeah, sure. It's a shame that it comes to it. But again, like I know so many people that are so pissed off about them, and they just are too afraid to speak out because they don't want to lose their job. Probably why my channel is more popular than it should be. Like I'm just a Romanian, squeaky voice, zero production, and I have way more subscribers than I should, because I'm probably one of the few that talks about things that a lot of normies, I guess, are afraid to talk about. Shouldn't be this way, but it is what it is. So do let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys in the comment section.